Kyle Richards doesn't regret RHOBH walkout after being ambushed. Kyle Richards has become the queen of Amazon Lives, and during her latest live stream, she had plenty to say about the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. The RHOBH star was at the center of controversy in the latest episode, A Perfect Storm Out. The OG opened up about the dramatic scene, claiming that she was ambushed after arriving at the event organized by Bozoma St. John. What was meant to be a healing spa day for the women became a nightmare for Kyle. Things got so bad that she eventually stormed out, still clad in her robe and bath slippers. What we didn't know is that Kyle was going through a period of depression during filming and admittedly should have taken the season off. She briefly quit the show, at one point telling production she couldn't film anymore. However, that was short-lived and she returned a week later. RHOBH star Kyle Richards says she's constantly ambushed by her castmates. We've been tuned in to season 14 of RHOBH, but the same can't be said for Kyle Richards. The Bravo star confessed that she's chosen to miss the last 3 episodes due to her anxiety, admitting that the show has been frustrating and hard to watch. Kyle made the admission during a recent Amazon Live, noting that she felt ambushed many times throughout the season, starting with Sutton's party in the premiere. "It was like starting right out of the gate," reasoned the 56-year-old. "I started feeling like even people who I thought were my friends I had to question, and I was honestly depressed at that time. I really was." Kyle admitted she should have taken the season off given her mental state. "I was not equipped to deal with walking into those settings and feeling like I was being ambushed every time," she added. Kyle has no regrets about storming out of the healing spa event. The final straw for Kyle was at Bozoma's event, where once again she got into it with the group about her communication with Dorit Kemsley's husband PK. Eventually, she stormed out of the spa party in tears and talked about that dramatic moment on her Amazon Live. "I'm not proud of how I handled walking out of Boz, but I don't regret walking out," exclaimed Kyle. "I honestly was at a breaking point, and that was it." The OG also threw shade at her castmate Sutton Strack, who she heard had something to say when she left. "I have not walked off filming or walked out in all of the years I've been on the show. I'm going on 15 years here. She has walked out many times," retorted Kyle. Kyle Richards sat in her lush Beverly Hills backyard, the California sun casting its golden glow over her immaculately landscaped garden. The scent of blooming roses mingled with the faint aroma of her morning coffee, but her mood was anything but tranquil. She had just walked out of what was supposed to be a routine cast dinner for the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Instead, it had turned into a battleground, one that left her no choice but to exit. In the days following her dramatic departure, Kyle had heard the whispers, seen the headlines, and watched the social media debates unfold. Was she too sensitive? Was her walkout justified? Kyle wasn't oblivious to the criticisms, but as she sipped her coffee and reflected on the events that led up to her decision, she felt no regret. The dinner had started innocently enough. The cameras panned over clinking glasses, designer outfits, and the opulent surroundings of a 5-star restaurant. But tensions had been simmering beneath the surface for weeks, and it seemed tonight was the night for the pot to boil over. It began with Dorit Kemsley making a seemingly innocent comment about trust within the group. Kyle knew Dorit's words were a prelude to something bigger. Dorit had a way of couching her jabs in politeness, but her real intentions were sharp and deliberate. Sure enough, it didn't take long before Sutton Strack chimed in, questioning Kyle's loyalty to the group in light of recent tabloid rumors about her marriage to Mauricio Umansky. Kyle had braced herself for this. The rumors had been swirling for months, and while she had hoped to avoid the topic during filming, she knew that was wishful thinking. Still, she had expected a modicum of sensitivity, especially from women she considered friends. Instead, the questions came fast and furious, each one more probing than the last. "Kyle, do you think it's fair to keep us in the dark about what's really going on?" Garcelle Beauvais had asked, her tone measured but firm. "I'm not keeping anyone in the dark," Kyle had replied, her voice steady despite the lump forming in her throat. "There's nothing to discuss." Erica Jane, never one to hold back, had smirked. Come on, Kyle. You're not going to sit there and pretend everything's fine when the whole world's talking about it. If you want to convince us, you've got to do better than that. It was the ambush Kyle had feared, a coordinated attack masked as concern. As the accusations flew, she felt her defenses crumbling. She'd spent years sharing her life with these women, exposing her vulnerabilities for the sake of authenticity. But in this moment, their probing felt less like friendship and more like fodder for ratings. Then came the tipping point. Teddy Mellencamp, Kyle's longtime friend, who had recently returned to the group as a guest, attempted to intervene. "Guys, let's give Kyle some space. This isn't the time or place." "Stay out of it, Teddy," Dorrit snapped. "You're not even full-time anymore. This doesn't concern you." The remark hit a nerve, and Teddy shot back, but Kyle barely registered the exchange. Her mind was racing, her heart pounding. She felt trapped, betrayed, and exhausted. Rising from her seat, she addressed the group. "I'm done," she announced, her voice resolute. "If this is what our friendship looks like, I don't want any part of it." With that, she grabbed her handbag and strode out of the restaurant, leaving the women stunned and the cameras rolling. Now, as she replayed the scene in her mind, Kyle felt a sense of peace about her decision. Walking away wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a declaration of self-respect. She'd given so much of herself to this show, to these friendships, and in return, she'd been blindsided in one of her most vulnerable moments. "I'm not going to apologize for standing up for myself," she thought. "I've earned the right to walk away when the line is crossed." The fallout had been predictably dramatic. Dorrit had given a scathing interview, accusing Kyle of being overly sensitive and unwilling to face the truth. Erica had doubled down, claiming Kyle's walkout was a performance designed to garner sympathy. But not everyone was critical. Teddy had publicly defended her, calling out the group's hypocrisy and reminding everyone that they, too, had moments they'd rather keep private. Even Mauricio, who typically stayed out of the drama, had expressed his support. "You did the right thing," he had told her the night of the dinner. "You don't owe anyone an explanation about our life." That reassurance had been a balm to Kyle's soul. She and Mauricio had weathered their share of storms, and while the rumors were painful, they knew their truth. Their marriage wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and they were committed to navigating its complexities together. As the days turned into weeks, Kyle's resolve only strengthened. She focused on her family, her projects, and her own well-being. The show would go on, as it always did, but she was determined to approach it on her terms. If that meant setting boundaries and walking away from toxic situations, so be it. Reflecting on the dinner, Kyle realized that the walkout was about more than just that night. It was about reclaiming her voice in a group dynamic that often left little room for individuality. For too long, she played the role of peacemaker, mediator, and punching bag. It was time to rewrite the narrative. When the reunion eventually rolled around, Kyle knew the topic would resurface. The women would demand explanations, and the viewers would expect fireworks. Kyle wasn't worried. She'd faced tougher challenges in her life than a group of judgmental housewives, and when the time came, she'd be ready to stand her ground. "I don't regret walking out," she'd say. "Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is remove yourself from a situation that doesn't serve you." As Kyle finished her coffee and set the cup down on the table, a sense of calm washed over her. She glanced at her phone, which buzzed with a text from Teddy. "Proud of you. Call me when you're ready to talk." Kyle smiled, grateful for the support of those who truly mattered. The storm had passed, and she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to live life on her own terms.